Hi guys, welcome back to my channel and a new Ponytails with Kelly-Anne video. It is a very wet day today and I am going to go out for a very short but wet ride. However, I thought that instead of doing a riding video, which you guys have seen a lot of recently, I thought I would do something a bit different and do like a starter series. So I'm going to do a groom and tack up with me, just so that you guys, you know, maybe you guys don't have your own ponies, or you've kind of had horses when you were younger and you've fallen out of love with it and you want to get back into it but you're not sure. I thought this would be a really good kind of like starter series for you guys, kind of see what's the same, because a lot of it is the same, a lot of it's not changed in sort of the 20 years that I've had horses, and then also what is slightly different maybe, but yeah, so let's get on with today's video. Okay, I have got treats in my pocket, which is why Zeus is robbing me for those. But here I am with Zeusy. He's all had his rug off and he's had his bands off, so he actually wears the equestrian's magnetic bands overnight just to stop his legs from swelling. But yeah, so I thought I'll quickly show you kind of like how important it is to groom. So obviously Zeusy is fully clipped, and that clip, obviously because we're getting into the spring now, will start to grow out. However, he does get mud on his neck, obviously, when they roll, and on their face. It's really important to, if you don't have a lot of time to groom, to prioritise the points where the tack is sitting. So the back here where the saddle sits, down the side here behind his shoulder, behind his sort of shoulder here, where the girth sits, and obviously all across his face, because obviously any dirt or grease or anything that's kind of trapped in there under the tack can rub whilst you're riding, and you don't want that because you don't want them to get sore or have any pain whilst you're riding, because it's just like a negative reinforcement for them. I tend to groom all over, just because I read somewhere in an article that it encourages kind of blood flow, so it's good at kind of like trying to warm their muscles up just a little bit before you ride. Obviously you do warm-ups when you ride as well, that's also really important, but just making sure that, you know, by brushing them you're just encouraging kind of the blood flow to kind of travel to all parts of their body, and kind of get them all warmed up and ready to go riding. So there tends to be 4 staples that I kind of use whenever I tack up. Now, I must apologise, they do need a clean, and that will be in my spring clean video. However, I swear by these 4 brushes. So this is the HY Magic Brush. This is almost like what was a plastic curry comb way back in the day, and do you remember they used to have the handles and stuff? You can still get those ones, but these ones I think are much easier to sit in your hand, much easier to get kind of like some pressure on, and they're not too sore or hard on horses, especially when they're fully clipped like Zeusy is. So that is a staple, and really good at getting the dried mud off, and wet mud, to be fair, like anything like that. Obviously the next one is a hairbrush, so obviously I groom Zeus's mane and his tail. If your horse has got quite a thin mane, please be careful, and I do use mane and tail conditioner. Zeus does have quite a thick mane, being an Andalusian cross, so I do groom his every day, because as you can tell it kind of gets a little bit wild, and it does, his mane actually does need a trim at the moment, so that's next on my to-do list as well. The next brush I have is a flick brush, or a dandy brush, quite a tall dandy brush. And this, again, after I've gone over him everywhere with the magic curry comb, this just kind of like flicks all that mud and dust off and away from his body, and it kind of like, it doesn't disrupt the oils in his skin too much. Again, because he is fully clipped and it is quite a fine clip, I don't want to take out too much of the oils, because obviously that's what keeps him warm if we were to have another cold snap. The next brush I have, oh, nearly dropped them all. is a hoof pick, a very, very trusty hoof pick, and a hoof pick in the winter will be your best friend because obviously there's lots of mud. Obviously Zeus has come out of his stable this morning and I haven't picked his feet out yet, so he's going to have all of his sort of stable muck and everything. Stones, I always carry a much smaller one without the brush, you know, the old-fashioned kind of metal ones. I always carry one of those when I go out hacking, just in case I'm out hacking and he gets a stone in his foot and I can just get off and pick it out, because obviously they can go quite lame with those, and you can also bruise the sole of their feet, which you don't want. So yeah, these are kind of like the 4 staples. So let's get grooming Zeusy and get ready for our little ride. So as I said, I use the little curry comb thing first. Now Zeus is a very, very good boy. He does let me use this all over his face. Some horses are a little bit more sensitive to the face area. Just use, you can get like little mini face brushes, but Zeus uses this. I use this for Zeusy quite well, and it does kind of like, he's fine and happy with that. The only place Zeusy doesn't like being touched, fun fact, is his ears, which is why his ears are incredibly bushy. But you know, he doesn't like them being touched, and there's no point in upsetting him. I've had him from a baby, and if he doesn't like it by now, as he's nearly going to be 12 next month. Oh my god, he's going to be 12. He's not going to enjoy it. But anyway, I thought I'll quickly groom here. So obviously this is where he would roll. So this is where he would roll in the field. And I'm just making sure that obviously, because this is where the bridle will sit, I'm just making sure, Zeus, this isn't very helpful. I'm just making sure that this is clear and free of mud. And obviously these Lamo head collars are brilliant at being able to hook it off and kind of get to those hard to reach places without having to take the head collar off, which is also really helpful. And then I just run down his mane or his neck and push his mane over, because his mane is on the other side and it just kind of goes a bit crazy on this side. And then I give him a bit of a brush. So obviously I try to concentrate on all parts of his body to kind of, like I said, encourage that blood flow, but also just to make sure that there's no dust. And I tend to run my hands over, especially where the tack sits. I just tend to run my hands over to make sure that there's no dirt points. Zeus obviously is rugged up with the neck at the moment because it is still very wet and kind of muddy. So when he comes in from the field, it's kind of muddy from kind of here down. But his body tends to stay quite clean, and I do always groom him before he goes to bed as well, and before I put his pyjamas on at night time, just because I like him to kind of be in his stable all nice and clean. As we move more towards Zeus's back end, I kind of do focus a little bit on this bit, because obviously this is where not only does he roll in the field, but when he lies down in his stable, he also gets stable stones here. It's really important. I do stand right behind Zeusy, but I have had him from a baby, and he, you know, I have owned him for 12 years nearly, so I know him very, very well. I wouldn't necessarily do it to a new horse or to a horse that I don't know until I've kind of got comfortable with them that they're not going to kick me, because here you are right in the sight of being kicked and double barreled. Even here to a point, you are at a point where you can get cow kicked by them. So you've just got to be really, really careful of a reactive horse with their back end. But like I said, Zeus is very, very good, and I've had him a very, very long time. But yeah, so as I kind of work on this area, I focus on kind of going down his leg, making sure all the mud is off. I actually washed Zeus's feet last night because he was like a hippo and he actually came in just completely covered. So I did actually give him a bit of a hose off and a wash off. So I will show you. Kind of, Zeus is all right. This is kind of like, he is quite clean down here. So what I'm doing is I'm just kind of like brushing the little bits of dust or shavings that he's got from the stable overnight. And then obviously the next thing after I've done the dandy brush and the curry comb, I'm going to groom this tail because I've got half of my stable in here. But yeah, this is a nice little relaxing groom for Zeusy. He loves being pampered and groomed. And another thing I also tend to do is I tend to let him eat his haylage whilst I groom him, because A, keeps him occupied and stops him from being so fidgety, because there's nothing worse. Oh God, that's a duck. There's nothing more than having quite a fidgety horse when you're trying to kind of like groom them and stuff. And then also I like to make sure that he has lined his stomach with some hay or haylage before we ride, because also it just kind of discourages any stomach ulcers or anything like that, which I know are quite, most horses are quite susceptible to that if they don't get forage before they ride, because obviously the stomach always has acid in it, and then you get the splashes and ulcers can occur from that. So it's also really important to make sure that before you ride your horse and groom it, that it hasn't had its hard feed within the first hour. Again, Zeusy doesn't have hard feed in the morning. I only give him an evening dinner. A, because he doesn't need it, and B, because he's on a balancer, I like to give him a nice bigger dinner so that he feels like he's getting a nice big dinner. And he's used to not having a breakfast. He's never had one. So yeah, so make sure that your horse has some hay before you ride, even if it's just sort of 10 minutes of eating some hay. It's just something to kind of neutralise the acid in the stomach. And B, making sure that they haven't just had a hard feed, because it's like us trying to eat and then go swimming. It's going to make us feel a little bit unwell. Okay, so now that the curry comb has all been kind of taken all over Zeus's body, and I'm happy that all the mud has been lifted, now it's time to go over him just quickly with the dandy brush. And for this, you just go in the same way as the coat with any brushing. You go the same kind of direction as the coat. And this one is really good at getting like that flicking motion. And you get the flick. And sometimes you can see kind of the dust and the hair kind of flick away from them. And I also do kind of like down the inside of his legs and along his belly as well, just to make sure there's no mud there. And obviously just making sure that there's nothing that kind of goes in the girth area as well, because that is a real pressure point where it sits. And then obviously you do the same on the other side. This one's quite a quick process really, because we've already done the hard work with the curry comb. So the next piece of kit that I use is my hairbrush. So for this, I just kind of, again, brush in the direction of the mane and the tail and make sure that that's all kind of out of the way. So Zeus's mane does sit on his right side. Some horses will sit on the left, and some horses will sit on the right. And here, I just make sure I bring it all down and it's kind of like tangle free and mud free. Zeus's mane does need pulling, which I will do another video on that soon. But yeah, that's quite a quick process. And then the last part we brush with the hairbrush is obviously his tail. Okay, so the last bit of grooming that I do is tail. And again, like I mentioned, please try not to stand right directly behind your horse's bottom, because you are then in the firing line of being kicked. Here I'm going to just groom the tail. You can see that there's some shavings and some hay in here, and I just very gently start at the top and work your way down, grooming the tail. Like I said, I do use mane and tail conditioner in Zeus's tail kind of every other day. I used it last night, so I know I don't need any this morning. But if you're working through the tail and you feel that you're pulling on it, or there's lots of like knots and it's getting tangled up, please stop pulling on it. Don't pull on it, because you're going to thin it out, and just use the mane and tail conditioner and work the brush through the tail quite nicely, and kind of get all those bits out. The tail isn't really too detrimental to actual riding. It's more like a vanity thing and just kind of like keeping them nice and clean. But they're really, really good. It's really good at kind of like finishing the look off and making them look all nice, tidy and smart. Okay, so now all the grooming's being done and Zeus's tail looks nice and clean, I'm now going to go and pick out his feet. And for this, I'm just going to kind of show you how I do it. I go front to back, front to back. That again is just my personal preference. You can choose from any foot you see fit. Obviously some horses can be funny with back feet, so again, just be really, really careful when dealing with the back feet. That little bit was attached to Zeus's tail. Just be really, really careful when dealing with back feet, just so you don't get kicked. So when picking the feet out, obviously you've got the middle bit here, which is the frog. So I just make sure that there's no stones kind of trapped between Zeus's shoe and his hoof, and just make sure that all of that kind of bit's clear, and make sure that there's nothing kind of sticking out, there's no heat on the foot or anything. Zeus's feet are actually quite clean today, but that'll be because I hosed them last night. But yeah, just kind of like making sure that the frog hasn't got any issues, obviously because it's kind of wet and then dry conditions at the moment. Horses are a bit more susceptible to getting abscesses and things, so again, just keep an eye out for that. Zeus, touch wood, has full shoes on, so abscesses are very difficult for him to get. But obviously if you've got a horse that's barefoot, it's really important to make sure you have really, really good hoof care, just to make sure that you can keep them tip-top and lame-free, really, because a lot of lameness comes from the hooves. Okay, so after all of that, it's really good that you kind of like positively reinforce the horse. So well done for being very patient. Zeus was a very, very good horse to be groomed today. He hardly moved, and he picked up all his feet when I asked him to and things like that. So it's really good to kind of give them some, I touched his ears then, some positive reinforcement to make sure that they know that you think that they're being a good boy or girl, and kind of like give them a bit of a treat to make sure that they're happy. Be very, very careful with giving your horses treats, because some horses can get a bit snappy and a bit bitey. Zeus, again, is very, very good, and he does have his haylage, so he knows that's like his main source of food at the moment. But I do give him the odd treat, which I have in my little pocket. But as you can tell, he's not overly fussed by those. Good boy. Good boy. You look so smart and so tidy. Okay, so we're back at the feet and the legs, guys. Zeusy actually has 3 pairs of boots that he wears when we ride, and 1 pair of boots that he wears kind of when he's ridden, turned out in the field, pretty much everywhere where he's not in his stable. So the ones that he wears all the time are his overreach boots. Now these are a little bit wet because obviously I washed them last night because it is muddy, and you can see here all the kicks and scrapes that we get. So these are actually in still quite a good condition, and he'll wear these for probably a few more weeks, but you can see there's chunks taken out of them and everything, and this would actually be his foot if he didn't wear these. So they're really important for him to wear every single day, just to make sure that he doesn't overreach. Now an overreach is where his back legs kick his front legs kind of right under his heel here where his hoof is. They can pull off shoes, but they can also damage the back of their feet and their legs, and cause quite sort of serious damage. So this kind of prevents a lot of that, and as you can see where these boots have got holes in and marks, you can see where he's scored himself and kind of caught the boots instead of his feet. So it prevents vet bills. The second 2 pairs of boots that he wears are these. Now these are the Woofwear brushing boots. They're the club brushing boots, so nothing too fancy. He wears these on the fronts and the backs, and that is because both his front legs and his back legs, when he exercises, they rub together on the inside here of his foot, and they kind of like rub on the inside and they bash. And again, these have got like a very thin kind of protective layer of plastic on the inside, and that takes the hit instead of his legs, which can, you know what it's like when if you whack your ankles together, it'll bruise and it's sore, and that's kind of like preventing what happens here. But yeah, he only wears these when riding and when I'm making him kind of do exercise really. Out in the field he tends to kind of not work as close together, and not as collected, so he tends to not kick himself so much out in the field. Okay, so Zeus has got his overreach boots on. It doesn't matter which foot they go on, they can go on left or right, there's no right or wrong way. There are some overreach boots where they have a little bulb at the back, and those ones you just got to make sure that you put them on correctly and the Velcro goes at the front. But these ones, I don't have those. I find that those rubbed Zeusy, so I always go for these neoprene ones that you can wear on any foot. So they're much easier for not only you to put on, but also other people if they're doing them in your absence. And then finally, the next pair of boots is obviously the brushing boots. I'm going to show you them on this side. And these ones are really easy. There's obviously 2 inside, so I've got 2 large back ones and 2 medium front ones. And you can see there where Zeus rubs with them. They're a little bit muddy because obviously it is muddy this time of year. These ones are left and right. So you've got to do it so that the tape, the Velcro tape bit goes to the tail. So here I put them on, and I put them on the inside of the foot or the leg, run it down so that it's in position. So I make sure that it's covering the area that I need it to cover, which is obviously the side here, the inside of his leg. I pull them tight so that the Velcro here is underneath the neoprene, and then the taper goes towards the tail like that. So just like that, and then I will check to make sure that I'm happy with the placement, which I am, and then that's fine. And you do the same for the front foot. So you undo them, run them down the inside of the leg to make sure that they're in the position that you want them. You pull it, and then your taper goes towards the tail, and that's how you know you've got it on the right foot. Right guys, now Zeus is all groomed and he's got his boots on ready. It's now ready to start tacking him up. So here I'm with my saddle. The first thing I do is once a week, I check over my saddle to make sure that everything looks like it's sitting correctly and it's looking right, and I do clean it regularly to make sure that it stays nice and clean, and I keep this cover on it to keep it clean. The main piece of tack that I check the most is probably my girth. Now this is the Deva synthetic girth. I like these because obviously there's elastic on either side and it gives them a bit more flexibility, and I just find that there's a little gel insert as well here, which is like, it sounds nice for the horse. I don't know whether Zeus notices it or not, but I just find them a bit more comfortable for Zeus than leather ones, and they're also a bit more breathable than leather ones as well, because especially in the summer they can get quite sweaty under them. So here, where it curves in, this is effectively the bit where it sits kind of like under his armpit really, and I like to check these areas just to make sure that there's no split in the synthetic material, no splits or anything, because once there's a split, this material can move and it can cause pinching in that area, and you don't want that. You don't want to cause any discomfort or pain to the horse when you're riding. So that's probably the first thing that I check, and Zeus's tack I do check regularly, and like I said, I do clean regularly as well. Obviously here we've got Zeus's saddle. So Zeus actually has the Kenton Masters GP saddle. This is adjustable, it has an adjustable gullet, and I have owned this from brand new. So I actually backed Zeus with this saddle, so it's probably about 7 years old now, and it does get checked multiple times, usually twice a year, by my saddle fitter and the saddle fitter who originally fitted it to Zeus 7 years ago. So there you go, we're showing how old we both are now. But yeah, I just check it over to make sure that there's no marks, there's no scrapes. All my stirrups and my leathers are all safe and secure. I actually use the wrapped leather stirrup leathers, just because obviously they don't stretch and they're a bit more robust, because obviously they've got the synthetic material inside and they're just wrapped in the leather, which is nice. The stirrup irons I don't use anything fancy. I know you've got a lot of the flex on ones and things at the moment. For me, I just get on with these. I've had these, again, these were on my old horse's saddle as well, so I've probably had these stirrup irons since I was probably about 12, I'm not gonna lie. So they're quite old and I've never replaced them, but they're perfectly fine because obviously they're stainless steel. There's no marks out of them, there's no sign of the materials wearing at all, and in my head, if it's not broke, don't fix it. And the flex on ones, although they're probably very, very good for safety standards, are very, very pricey and expensive. And with horses, by no means do you need to spend a lot of money to enjoy your horse and things like that. Especially for me, I enjoy nice leisurely hacks. I do some clinics, and obviously I do the YouTube for you guys. I'm not out to kind of be the next show jumper or eventer and things like that. I have done those things in the past, but for me and Zeusy, it's just about kind of like enjoying riding. I work full-time and just enjoying kind of leisure riding really, which is what I do. But anyway, so yeah, so I check the stirrup leathers, the irons, the saddle, and also the inside, just to make sure that all my like girth straps are all secure and everything, and there's no fraying or there's no issues there, and they're perfectly all fine. It's also a check that my saddler does every 6 months, just to make sure that my saddle's in tip-top shape, and also is checking the tree to make sure that the tree is not broken. But my saddle, like I said, I've owned it from brand new. Touch wood, we've never had any big falls or anything. I'm very, very lucky that Zeus was very easy to break, and I did break him myself, or back him myself, should I say. But yeah, so this is my saddle, so let's kind of get it on the boy. So before you put the saddle directly onto the horse's back, I use a saddle pad. So obviously this is my forest green or British racing green Shire's performance pad, which I really like, and then obviously I have the Pro Light multi-riser. So multi-riser is because it's got a back and a front pocket. I only use a riser in the front, and you can see it's here, it's blue, and there is a cutout in this one. This is because obviously those of you who have watched my YouTube for a while know that Zeus had a back injury at the end of the summer last year, and this is kind of cut out to avoid the lump that he's got just here. He has a lump in his top, at the bottom of his wither here, which is basically he had a horse land on him and he has some calcification in the ligaments, and that just prevents any pressure points with that. So it just kind of gives the Pro Light gives us a little bit of like a little bit of comfort really, and padding as such between the saddle and the saddle pad, just so that to not create a pressure point where he's got that lump. So I'll just put these on. So I put the saddle pad on first, and to make sure that's in position, I try to make sure that the girth straps kind of stay down, but obviously at the moment when you put the saddle on, it'll all kind of change slightly, so don't spend too much time making sure that that's perfect. And obviously most horses won't have the additional pad, some do, some don't, but obviously again I just make sure that that's in position, and I make sure that my strap here that's going to attach to my girth straps on the flap, under the flap of my saddle, are ready and free to be used. Then I will grab my saddle here, and I just grab it and I basically very gently, without the girth attached, place it just onto Zeus's back. I make sure that there's a little gap here so that there's no pressure, no pinching here, because obviously this is again where his pressure point is, and I always like to make sure that I run my hand under the bottom of the saddle to make sure that that point is out of the way of the saddle really. And then I do the same here, I just lift up the back slightly so that there's a little channel and you're freeing up the spine basically. I then lift the flap and attach the girth strap, and then I do the same on the other side. So I'm just attaching the girth strap, making sure Zeus's mane comes down quite low as well, so I also have to make sure that his mane's out, and make sure that everything is fitting in the right place. So now that the saddle's on, now is time to get ready with his girth. So I have attached the girth already on the other side, and I've just put it on the first pole. Now most horses, Zeus included, is a puffy horse, which means that he puffs out when you're trying to put the girth on because he just doesn't want you to do it up basically. And so at the moment it doesn't look like it's going to fit, but once we start kind of like pulling and engaging the elastic, that's why I like elasticated girths, you will get that push, and once it's done up he'll start breathing normally, and then you can put it up quite high. By no means is this girth tight, but obviously you need it quite secure for when you're riding. So when you have a horse that is puffy and you've got an elasticated girth, please don't just hold on to this and just yank, because your girth, you're not attached to your saddle, so your saddle will get pulled over the other side and you could end up in a bit of a pickle. So what I tend to do is I hold the girth here. I don't worry about these straps at the moment, but then I hold my first strap and I basically pull them towards each other carefully. And as you can see, Zeus is puffing. There we are. So that's it attached on the first hole. And like I said, I haven't worried too much about this little loop at first. But what I will do is I will put my second girth strap, so I'll do that with that now. And I will put that under the loop. So there you go. That was much easier to put on because obviously he's already started breathing out because he knows that I've already attached it. So I will then do the same with the other one. I'll unattach it and then hook it under the loop and do it back up. I will then, you know, now you can see how much space is underneath there. I can near enough fit my entire wrist under there. So it's not tight, he's just puffy. So then I'll just make sure that, again, before I tighten the saddle up, everything's in place. I'm happy with all the placement of everything on both sides, because it's really important to treat both sides separately. Just because this side looks correct doesn't necessarily mean what's going on the other side is correct. So you need to kind of keep flicking between the two to make sure that you're happy. And then I just basically will do that up again. So I'll go up and do that up again, another hole. I just tend to go one hole at a time. And again, making sure that your girth, when it reaches the saddle pad, that it's not all kind of bunching up as well, because again, that's another pressure point that can start and you don't want to cause anything there. And then I'll kind of like do it up. I usually do it up on 2 holes either side before getting on. And then I'll do it up again when I'm on. And then usually when I'm down at the woods as well, I might check it again and do it up again, because again, once you start getting some movement and they start walking, again, the saddle kind of like goes into position, and your horse can kind of like breathe out a little bit more, and you can probably do it up again. Before I ride, once I've first initially done the girth up, because obviously, like I said, it does sit right under the armpit, I do front stretches with his legs. So Zeusy, he lifts up his knee, and I'll stretch it, and it just stretches it out, stretches all the skin out, because behind the, where the girth sits here, it is quite wrinkly, it's quite loose skin, and you just want to make sure that you're not getting any pressure points. Yeah, I know you're a good boy, aren't you? He's a good boy, he's going to go out riding. So by this point now, Zeus knows that he's going out riding. He's quite happy with that. He's a very, very good boy to tack up. Okay, so then the final part of tacking up is obviously the bridle. This is probably Zeus's weakest area, because as I mentioned previously in my video, he doesn't like his ears being touched. So you've got to be very, very careful and sensitive to Zeusy not touching his ears too much or any more than you need to. He does have a bridle path, which I do find helps, because he doesn't like his ears being touched. So the top of the bridle just sits in that area, and I know it's not going to irritate his ears at all. And then also he is very good. He opens up his mouth for his bit. So by no means does he not want his bridle on. He just kind of, there are some days if he's got a little bit of a temper on him, which he does occasionally have, we like to have a bit of a strop with it, don't we? But hopefully today he's going to be quite good. So anyway, same with the saddle. I do check the points of the bridle. I make sure that the noseband is all attached correctly. This actually should be like that. So yeah, and I make sure that all my reins are right. I do attach them, so this is how I store them. So I undo the throat lash and release the reins basically, and then I check the bit to make sure that the bit's all okay and all the reins and everything are all attached correctly. So yeah, I'm happy with that. Then what I do is I take his head collar off and I just attach it straight down to his neck. Again, please be careful when doing this with the horse, because some horses, if they know they're getting tacked and they don't want to be, they will bolt, and you don't want that. So again, I'm going to take the reins and put the reins straight over Zeus's neck and into position where I need them down by the saddle. And then I grab the bridle, so I get the throat lash out of the way, and I also get the noseband out of the way, so that I can just basically do up, get to the bit basically, and hold the bit in my hand and hold it to the bottom of Zeus's mouth. So there he will just, then you see he opens his mouth and I can touch his ears very quickly and put it into position. There we are. So that's all right. I just make sure that the bridle path, again, trying not to touch his ears too much because he is very sensitive with that, and make sure that his brow band is all in position, and again, not pinching at his ears, because he won't thank me for that. Good boy, well done. Then I do his noseband up first. So here I just do the noseband. I tuck it under the cheek pieces. This is a crank noseband, so you have like a crank effect to it. Again, that's all done up. And because Zeus's noseband is a little bit long, I just literally hook that bit under his cheek piece, in the loop of his cheek piece. It doesn't always stay there, but it just for now gets it out of the way. And then we do up his throat lash. So cheek pieces, you need to make sure that you can fit 2 fingers underneath it quite comfortably, and it's not too tight. This one actually is on the tightest hole and it is quite loose. I need to get my saddler to put a couple of holes in it and probably shorten the strap, just because over time, as I've used it, it's stretched and it's not tight anymore. And then here, the cheek piece, you need to be able to fit 3 to 4 fingers sideways like that underneath, just so again, this doesn't get caught up in anything. And it's also not too tight that it's going to affect their throat. And that's kind of it, guys. The next thing to do, obviously, when you get on, is to make sure that your stirrup irons are the right length for you. Obviously, I know mine are, because I'm the only person that rides Zeusy. And to do your girth up again before you ride. Obviously, don't forget to unattach your head collar before you ride as well. But anyway, that's all done. Zeus is all tacked up. And he was a very, very good boy, wasn't you? Wasn't you? Now we're going to go and enjoy a ride, and it actually does look like it's stopped raining since I filmed this video, which is great news for us. But anyway, thank you guys so much for watching today's video and my first in my starter series. Please let me know in the comments what kind of situation you're in with your horse, and if you found this video useful, and if you did, what video you would like me to produce for you guys next. But yeah, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoy, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye! You're so clever. You're so clever. Anja, you're so clever. You're such a good boy. Oh, you got some eye babies. Come here. Oh, I know. Oh, I know, baby. I know. You're so clever. Let me kiss your nose.